Nigeria, a vibrant tapestry of places, people, stories, struggles, and unshakable spirits. Politicians make promises, but who really holds them accountable? I'm Donu, and this isn't just about politics. This is about us. This is where we confront the hard truths that few say publicly. Hello everyone, welcome to Nigeria Unfiltered, which is being filmed by me in London. And it's 24 hours late. I'm sorry about that. It was supposed to come out yesterday, but it's precisely because I'm in London that it's late. I traveled without Emmanuel, my social media manager, and I'm so reluctant. I find it so difficult to film myself when Emmanuel is not around. If you want to know how bad I am at filming myself, look at the video I put out last Friday, Donu's Week Bumper Edition. It was so bad in terms of quality. And anyway, I hope I do a bit better today. And what I want to talk about today is how Nigerian society is sabotaged at different levels by the people beneath the main leadership. Because, you know, we always complain about, or I always complain, and so do many other people, about President Tinubu, or the one before him, President Buhari, or the one before him, President Jonathan. You know, we critics, whether we are professional critics like journalists like myself, or just generally disgruntled Nigerian citizens, we always blame the man at the top for almost everything that goes wrong. And we often fail to focus on the people who are messing things up at a lower level. And I was recently involved in this type. Anyway, so I was made a member of this committee alongside legislators, senator, a senator, members of the House of Representatives, academics, religious leaders. I think I was probably the only senior journalist on that committee. Anyway, there were lots of different people. We had a former minister. Lots of different people were involved in, I think there were about 50 of us, and we were supposed to have intelligent, transparent discussions about the best way of resolving the political factionalization and tensions. Okay, the first thing I noticed was that, to be fair to the people who are running this committee, there were meetings almost every week, to which everybody was welcome to attend. However, these meetings took place in Port Harcourt, and some of us do not live in Port Harcourt. I live in Abuja, which is the federal capital. Abuja is, you know, because I'm mindful of the fact that some of my viewers are not Nigerian. So let me just quickly say, Abuja is Washington, okay? And Port Harcourt is Houston, though nowhere near as good. But, okay, so the meetings are taking place in Port Harcourt, which is appropriate. It is the oil-producing area, and this committee is primarily about ensuring that oil production can be resumed, okay? But the thing is that if you didn't make it to the meetings, it was almost impossible to get minutes that would tell you what was said at the meeting, what was agreed. I made repeated requests through the WhatsApp group that was formed, and I was totally ignored. I begin to suspect that they knew that some of us would not be able to make it to those meetings physically. You know, apart from the fact that Port Harcourt is very far away from where I live, it's also extremely expensive to fly from Abuja to Port Harcourt nowadays. And we weren't given any travel allowances. So, you know, I was counting on seeing the minutes of the meetings that I couldn't attend. There was a Zoom factor, but it was not, there were technical hitches. Anyway, the first thing I noticed is that nada. There was no response when I asked for meetings minutes or meeting minutes. The second thing I noticed is that even though I was the most senior media person there, my opinion was never sought about any of the media activities the committee engaged in. I would just see stuff in newspapers. I'm not saying the person who was handling that aspect did a bad job. I'm just saying it's very strange to have an international journalist who has a YouTube channel, a newspaper column, and writes for foreign and Nigerian publications being completely cut out of the discussion about how the committee is presented to the world. Its deliberations, okay? Then I thought that was very disrespectful. I also thought it was very disrespectful that when I asked for meeting minutes, I was ignored. Then it came up that the president had said that we could have in Ogoniland a new federal University of Environment and Technology. It was a kind of like, if you like, an incentive to make the people feel that the government was sympathetic to the problems that we have had in that area. It was a kind of compensation, okay? Thank President Tinubu for that. I don't always insult him. He doesn't always get it wrong. So that was a good idea. Thank you, Your Excellency. Anyway, as soon as we were told that this university was being set up, I said that I hoped that all committee members would have a say in the recruitment policy. Because what often happens with Nigerian government things, it's all about cronyism. It's all about bringing the wrong people in, your relatives, your girlfriends, your cronies, your chums, who are not necessarily the best qualified. Now, I didn't expect that I was going to be allowed or asked to choose the vice-chancellor and the senior officials of the new university. But I thought that at least, kind of every committee member would be allowed to nominate one or two people for even the lowliest jobs like cleaners. Because believe you me, in Nigeria, everything is such a mess. Poor people suffer so much. Not just poor people, graduates, everybody, anybody who is not well connected in Nigeria goes through hell. And I'm frequently approached by people who need help in terms of getting jobs, medical treatment, just earning a living, just surviving. And so I thought, jobs in places like universities should be properly advertised, of course, but Nigeria isn't like that. So I just thought, well, at least this is an opportunity for me to see if I can get some of my people into the university as cleaners or clerks or whatever. But yet again, the massive disrespect that was directed at me continued. My request for information about the staff that were required by the new university was completely ignored. My suggestion that every committee member was invited or should be allowed to nominate people for jobs was ignored. Next thing I knew, it was announced in the newspapers that they had a new vice-chancellor and the people who run that committee had secretly and disrespectfully gone and chosen who they wanted to choose. And they never came back to us to say, hey, what do you think of this guy for vice-chancellor or that guy for registrar? Do you have anyone you want to nominate for some of the lower level jobs? Nothing. Complete silence. Now, I don't want to get nasty because some of the people who were running the show are actually supposed to be friends of mine. And some of the people who have been chosen and will no doubt be chosen as time goes by because they haven't filled all the vacancies. I'm sure some of them will be decent human beings, some of whom I may even know personally. But the point I'm making is this. I'm not going to name names, but some of the people who have already been chosen are not suitable. For example, one senior person has got serious health challenges and has clearly only been chosen so that the people who are pulling the strings in the background can control him. And then there's another guy who's related to a legislator, totally unqualified for the senior job they've given him. So what I'm trying to say is that, as they say, there was a very famous song called by Tunji Oyelano, Nigerian musician, who said, there's one phrase that stands out from his song that always comes to my mind. When he said, it don't spoil from the start. That is where something is so fundamentally dodgy that there's no chance of it ever going forward in a healthy, honest, productive way. And that is what is happening with the Ogoni Federal University of Environment and Technology. Some wrong people have already been chosen for the wrong reasons. Even if some of the people who have been chosen are right, we were not consulted. Those of us who were on a committee that was supposed to participate in the decision making, it is absolutely outrageous, dishonest, disrespectful. And I'm calling out the people who committed this outrage because they need to stop this shit. They're so bloody useless and they are part of the problem. Every day we shout about how terrible Tinubu is. We forget about all the people beneath him who are causing as many problems in some ways, who are causing problems. Let me not say as many problems because Tinubu is a special case when it comes to dysfunctional leadership. But sometimes he does things right, and sometimes the people below him do things very, very wrongly. And I have come to the conclusion that the only reason, and I kept on asking myself, they don't answer my requests for meetings for minutes. They don't ask for my advice about media activities. They completely ignore my capacity to, productively and intelligently comment on recruitment issues. And not just me, there are other good people on that committee who have also been completely ignored. And I asked, why did they bring us if they don't care what we think and don't want to ask us advice on anything? And I realized, of course, it's obvious. Some of us have got good reputations, much better reputations than they have. Okay? So they want to be able to say, oh, Donu Kobara, that international journalist, the one who, at least so far, nobody has ever accused me of stealing or killing or rigging an election. So I do have quite a good reputation. And there are other people on that committee who have a similarly good reputation. And they just bring us in as padding so that it looks like they've involved serious, decent people in their proceedings. And then they just go and do what they want. Secretly, dishonestly, disrespectfully. And I'm sick of it because I think people like that are making Nigeria far worse than it needs to be. And it's so unfair, this level of cronyism, whereby only they and they alone are allowed to choose people who work for certain institutions and organizations. So, I just want to say that people say I'm obsessed with Peter Obi, but you know what? The reason I keep on mentioning Peter Obi is that I believe that if Peter becomes president of Nigeria in 2027, a lot of this malfunctioning, dysfunctional, terrible, bad behavior will come to an end. Ordinary people will be able to apply for jobs as cleaners or clerks or lecturers or statisticians or whatever, accountants, in organizations that are owned by the government. After all, government is owned by all of us. And so why should it always just be one tiny group of little groups of cronies arranging everything and blocking everybody out of the picture? I'm absolutely convinced that if Peter Obi becomes president, he will make sure that everybody has, almost everybody has, an equal opportunity to earn a living, to apply for jobs, to get into university. Because it's everything. Because, these people who have already started pouring poison into the Federal University of Environment and Technology in Ogoniland, these ones who've already started messing it up by picking the wrong people and not asking the right people for advice, they're going to carry on like this. They're going to push their girlfriends onto courses that they're not qualified for or that other people are more qualified for. So I'm just, I want Peter Obi to take Nigeria over so that everyone has a fair chance on a level playing field. I mean, I didn't even think it was right for me, even if they had allowed me to nominate some people for the new university for employment. That wouldn't have been right either, because then I would just have been part of the crony setup, bringing people I personally know or people who have approached me for help. Actually, I shouldn't be allowed to do that. Nobody should be allowed to do that. The opportunity should be thrown open to the general public, and people should get jobs, university places, or whatever, based on merit. Okay? And I think Peter Obi is a meritocrat who will ensure that Nigeria becomes a better place for everyone. And yeah, I mean, I can see that the cronyistic oligarchs and billionaires and election riggers are going to fight him to a standstill because they don't want Nigeria to get any better. They want nepotism and corruption to continue. But I believe that the Nigerian people should stand by Peter Obi and say, look, maybe you don't know him personally. Even me, I know Peter Obi, but I don't know him that well. I've only met his wife once, met him a few times. He's been very nice to me. I'm very nice to him. But, you know, it's not like we're close. I'm following him because I think he will give us a brighter future. And I think all Nigerians with their heads screwed on correctly should join me in giving him a chance to give Nigeria a chance. Thank you very much.